Mata iva rakshati. Rakshati, this T at the end should remind us it is a verb. So mata iva, like a mother, it protects. Remember, it's not only rakshati, he protects, she protects, but also it protects. So it could be he, she, or it protects. Pita iva, hitam is a benefit. So hite, so like father, in benefit, ni yunkte. This is with a prefix, ni plus yunkte means he utilizes, he, she, or it utilizes, or employs, or appoints. So technically, it's like a father, it appoints or it utilizes in benefit. Kanteva, that's kanta. That's a feminine, that's long A at the end. Kanta, so love or beloved. Cha, abhi, remember those prefixes? Abhi was one of them. You got ni, vi, abhi, up, ud, right? So let's remove abhi. We'll remove this whole thing, yeah? Just ramayati. Now remember ram, ramate, it delights. Now this is exactly the same. It comes from the same root. However, you're wondering, why is it ra, this ramayati? This is the ramayati. But we learned ramate. So where's this connection? Ramate, short A, and it's ramayati. So if you go to, this is called a causative verb. Causative means he, she, or it causes to be delighted in. In other words, ramayati is he, she, or it causes delight. What is ramate? Just ramate? He delights. But ramayati, he causes delight. In other words, it causes delight. Kanta iva, like a lover. In the scriptures, this causative is used very often. So how to identify causative? There will be a y in there. So rule, whenever you see a y, this y, inside a verb, it is likely a causative. What does causative mean? It means he, she, or it causes, and then whatever that verb means. How to discover this? In the Sankosha app. Oh, show us. Let's say Ram, right? So you have to search by Ram, as we remember. Now we'll click on the top right button and then verb 1. So Ramati, okay, it's correct. There is active, and then you got your middle, right? Now see how on the top it says normal? On the top it says normal. Now if I click on the button on the top right again, I will see causative. See on the top, the first one, singular, Ramayati. So Kanta Eva, like a lover, Cha Ramayati, Abhi Ramayati. It means the same thing, they just add these prefixes. It doesn't really change much of a difference, as I said last time. Apaniya dukham. So this is a gerund, apaniya dukham, having removed, having dispelled, having expelled, having trashed, having trashed or removed suffering. So in other words, it causes delight, like a lover, having removed pain. In other words, having removed ignorance. Kirtim cha dikshu. So cha kirtim dikshu, and glory dikshu, that is plural, in all directions. Vitanoti, spreads or extends. Again, this is vi. This is actually unnecessary because it doesn't really change much the tanoti. So the original verb is tanoti. If you just add vi, it actually remains the same. So tanoti is he expands or she spreads, she increases. So it increases in all directions like fame. Or it increases fame in all directions. That's better. And then again, tanoti, see this doesn't have a V there. Tanoti, lakshmin. In other words, it expands or spreads fortune. Kim kim na sadhayati. So what else can it not achieve? Yeah, okay, so he accomplishes, he achieves, attains, succeeds, fulfills, or carries out. Very useful verb. In the middle, because there's a ya there, it is a causative, but it doesn't matter. What's without the causative? Siddhyati. That's how we're usually trained. Siddhyati. It also has a ya. Doubling is like a rhetorical question. If it just said one, Kim, that's like a question. I'm asking you, hey, what else can it not achieve? But Kim Kim, na sadhayati, what else can it not achieve? That's a rhetorical question. I don't expect an answer.
So Kim Kim na labhamahe matuhu. What can we not achieve from our mother?
Kalpalata iva vidya. In other words, it is knowledge like wish-fulfilling herb. Remember, there's an asti there, yeah? So knowledge is like wish-fulfilling herb. Mateva rakshati piteva hite niyumte kanteva chabhiramayatya paniya dukham kirtim chadikshu vitanoti tanoti lakshmin kim kim nasadhayati kalpalateva vidya. Grammar. I introduced this section about strong, middle, and weak stem changes relating to paradigms. Now you say, what is this? So let's just go through this. It says, in all paradigms before chapter 16, the stem remains the same in the entire paradigm. Okay, so nara, 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 you just add the ending, right? Narasya, narapya, nareshu, right? Well, nareshu is a little bit different, but they're generally just nara all throughout. However, there are some paradigms whose stems do not remain consistent. That means the last letter of the stem changes in 3 different ways. It changes in a strong way, in a middle way, and a weak way. So what does this mean? It just means that the last letter changes. So do you really need to know this? Not really. However, why are we bringing up strong, middle, and weak? Because you will notice there are some discrepancies or inconsistencies in paradigms, right? And you say, why isn't it the same? Why isn't it like nara, right? Why isn't it just the same letter at the end? Now you know, because certain paradigms have these changes of the last letter of the stem. The good news is it is the same for every single paradigm. Therefore, you can apply this formula, this circle of red, green, for every single paradigm that is subject to this rule, right? And then you understand why is it, why there's some changes. Okay, so that's what strong, middle, and weak means. Is that clear? Yeah, it's usually not mentioned in Sanskrit courses. However, we are mentioning it here just so that you're not potentially kind of discouraged by these little changes. Like, what is this? Well, now you know, because the last letter will change in 3 different ways.
So that the change which you've written underneath already, an and the other one,
yeah,
will that apply to all of them? No, that's just for jan. That's just for stems ending in an. Yeah. Now, if you want to have a stem ending with r, vocalic r, that pitr, matr, that will also apply the same formula, but it will the 3 changes will be different, right? The strong, middle, and the weak will have different endings. This is where we stopped, and we will finish chapter 17 today. Like Rajan, this paradigm, all of the paradigms that end with this r at the end, with this r, will have strong, middle, and weak changes. And then I've already gave you the paradigm, which exactly will have those changes. Okay, number 2, page 221. I want you to notice this. Datr, right, is masculine, right? The giver. Datr, masculine. And it ends with this vocalic r, that means this r. However, pitr is also masculine, right? And it also ends with the same r. So what number 2 is saying is there's a slight change between datr and pitr. For example, in datr, giver, it will be datarau, dataraha, dataram, datarau, right? So the a will be long, right? See this a? Long, 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 long. But in Peter, it's short. See, there's no long there. So what number 2 is saying is the only changes will be in nominative dual, plural, accusative singular, and accusative dual. All right, that's the only changes between them. So why are we now saying this? Again, so you don't kind of get discouraged. Like, why is there a difference between Peter paradigm and Datr paradigm when they are exactly masculine? Shouldn't have a consistency. So all it's now saying is there could be some variations in dual in the ones that I've marked here, right? Duals, plural, and accusative. Number 3, what about if we want to create a compound, a iteretera compound out of these r words, right? These r nouns. So instead of saying matr, right, like that, please look, matr, itarao, that means mother and father. No, you replace this r with a a. Therefore, ma, ta, and then you put the second stem. So how do we say brother and father?
Brata pitarau.
Mother and brother.
Mata bratau. Because I'm looking at page on the red book where the karta comes.
Karta, yeah, sure. Karta will come on page 19 also, page 19.
Page 18.
Page 18, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, so there the dual form of karta is kartarau.
Kartarau, yeah. So now again, see number 2 here? How it says.
Yeah, okay, because that, okay, I understand. Okay,
yeah, now number 2 makes sense, yeah?
Yeah, thank you.
So it's like the long a, long a, long a, long a. Future tense. Okay, so far we learned about how to say gachati, he goes, gachami, I go. Now let's learn how to say I will go, she will go, I will remember, you will remember, we will remember. Okay. So in our reference books, we can put future tense. And then future tense, Panini's shorthand is lirt. How to create a future tense verb. Root would say gup. Okay, gup means to protect. So root plus sia or isha. Okay, please repeat this out. Sia, isha, sia, isha, sia, isha, sia, isha, isha, sia, isha, sia. So whenever we hear sia or isha in a verb, that means it is a future tense. Plus ending, the usual parasmaipada or atmanepada ending, like ti or te, right? Easy. So let's apply this formula. Gup, sia, and then we'll put finally ti at the end. Okay, so technically it is gup siati. Oh no, there's one more step. So what do we learn so far? Root plus sia or isha plus ending. How do you know whether it is sia or isha? There is no specific rule. You're just going to have to learn the right combination. The last step is, please look on screen. It says here strengthened root. What does strengthened root mean? It means you look for the vowel inside the verb. Okay, let's take gup. So we're looking at, which one's the vowel? The vowel is u. So when it says strengthened root, what you do is You take the last vowel inside the root, the last vowel inside the root, and you strengthen it to guna grade. What is guna grade? Let's go to Little Red Book. Vowel strength on page Roman 11. See this U? So you strengthen this U into a O, because O is guna grade. Guna just means middle. Therefore, G, U, P, this U changes into O. Therefore, it becomes G, O, P. How do we arrive from gup into gop? The answer is you look for the vowel inside the root and you simply apply guna strengthening. That means you go one step down and then you just change that vowel into a O. Is that clear? This guna strengthening is prevalent throughout most tenses that we were about to learn. Future tense, simple future, periphrastic future, and many more things that we will learn about. This guna grade strengthening will apply. If you go back to that page, the A remains the A, so there's no need to change anything. Therefore, pat remains pat. Pat, ishya, in this case, you put the ishya, not sya, but an ishya. See this? In this case, for pat, we add ishya. Therefore, patishya, and then T at the end. Patishyati, he will read, she will read. Okay, please study this example.